crazy when I tell you this.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, for some reason, I don't know why I attract them, but I have had umpteen people come pay me a visit from beyond. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, it's down in the house where you met me, writing in my journal. All of a sudden, standing 2 feet from me, and not a particularly big man, but there's a Native American Indian chief, and it was obvious because he's wearing a full-length headdress, right down, or feather headdress, right down to his feet. And he said, I have something to show you. Watch. Matter of fact, I think those were about the only words he said to me. He only told me who he was, and now I'd have to go back and look at Chief, maybe Juan Rose. Maybe his name was Juan Rose. I don't know. I have to go look at my journal, but tells me who he is. So that's something to show you. And so there's like this movie screen kind of right there in front of me. And although it was like 3D, somewhere out in the mountains by trees and there's hills and rocks, there's a small group of Indian men. Some of them skinny, some of them fat, some of them younger, some of them older. And then there's a little boy there, and I can see them all talking, and I can see the vehicles. And I'm thinking, this has got to be the 30s or 40s based on the vintage of these cars. And they're talking, and there's quite a debate going on. And then the next scene I see is like, as though the camera turned 90 degrees of these 2 men tied up. Let's see, it was 3 the first time. I think it was 3 the first time. 3 of them tied up to these trees right there that, the branches, the lower branches are gone. These are fir or spruce. They're tied up to them. There's a debate among these Indian men, and finally they quiet down, and one of them pulls out a big folding buck knife, opens it up, and just kind of casually walks right up to one of them and cuts his throat. One of these men, they're tied to the tree, and just cuts his throat, and it just makes you sick. And then he does the second one, and then he hands the knife to a different guy, and he does the third one. And what on earth is this all about? Then, scene changes. It's 25 years later, something. It's in the early 60s. And he doesn't tell me this, but I know it as I'm watching this thing. The little boy who had been there had been this girl, and that had been his dad and somebody else. The deal was they were protecting the gold. I saw these men moving these gigantic big bars of gold. I don't know, 2 feet long, 6 inches square, something like that. I don't know what, they must have weighed a couple 100 pounds at that size. And they were moving from one location to another. They had been paid for their work, and the reason they were brought in, they were these huge, big, strong guys, but because the Indians, I guess, had a difficult time moving them, and they were paid well, told never to come back, because stuff was guarded all the time. Well, they came back and attempted to steal something. They were caught, and they were killed. In fact, they were thrown in the hole where they had pulled it all out of it, and they were covered over. And, I'm in shock watching this. Yeah. Scene changes 25 years later or something, 20 years later, however long it was. It was early 60s probably. Almost the exact scene repeated. This time 2 men, a smaller group of Indians, more modern vehicles, same issue. They moved it again. This period you were saying every 15 years? Yeah. Maybe it was only 15 years later. I'd have to go, because ultimately I met with Burl later on. He confirmed the whole thing. Wow. Really? In fact, I don't know if you know Jim down in St. George or have heard of him. I don't. Jim's a descendant of Thomas Rhodes, and he, he's dabbled in some of the stuff out in Uinta over the years, and he knew this Burl. Well, I happen to know Jim, and I knew Jim knew him. So anyway, the scene repeats 20 years later, and it's Burl and another man named John. Now, John died here 3 or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I'm not sure how long ago. And I'll tell you an interesting story with him and Steve and Tom. Before we're done with this whole thing. Oh, you don't know Tom? No, I don't. He's one of Steve's friends, one of my friends, lives down in Beaver. Anyway. So, the same thing is repeated, and this time, it's Burl and this man named John who draw the short straws, if you will, and they have to take care of these other 2 men, and they do it in the same fashion, same manner. And I'm just about ready to throw up. Oh, yeah, I'll bet. Yeah. And then at the end of the thing, this Indian's gone. He doesn't say goodbye, boo, nothing. He's just gone. I'm sitting at my table just totally in shock. Sometime later, a few days or hours, I don't know what it was, I called Jim. Jim, I got to talk to this. You've mentioned this Burl guy. What do you know about him? He tells me, Burl, He was a nephew of, if I can remember his name. When I hear it, I know it. This guy was a Ute Indian, and his little note in history is that their family, from the stuff they were watching and caretaking over, I guess they were told to, they took a set of plates.
Oh, really?
These plates I've seen photographs of them, they've got a 7-pointed star carved in the top of them. And they gave that, I don't know, it's maybe an inch thick. So there's multiple plates bound together in this inch thick thing. They took it.
And where did it come from?
Somewhere out there in the Uintas, among the cache that the family and, if I could just think.
Guarded, huh?
I'll think of it about 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, from the stuff that they watched over, and they had a pretty big circuit of stuff that they would drive, not just in the Uintas. These guys drove all over Utah and the surrounding states.
Really?
They had a pretty big circuit. They traveled every few years to check on everything, make sure it was okay. So, just right along the lines of the story you told about
yeah. Yep.
So I tell Jim about what I saw. He happens to be coming up to Salt Lake a few days later. He meets, says, Burl, a friend of mine had this experience with you, and I want to tell you about it. You tell me if it's true. And Burl's a real tough guy to talk with because he just kind of glares at you. Like got that Indian glare, and he's really quiet. And then he says, he tells Jim that's exactly how it happened, and we'd do it again if we had to, because we have to protect this stuff.
Wow.
Hey guys, you never know what stories you'll hear, or what new friends you'll make from all across the country, and even possibly what artifacts you could see at the 2025 Moon Lake Gathering held in August 14th, 15th, and 16th, 2025 at the Duchesne Event Center, where we talk about treasure hunting, Bigfoot, and UFOs. This event's shaping up to be legendary, so I hope to see you all there. And with that said, that's a wrap.